I first met Henry when I was 6 years old. I was playing in the meadow behind my house, a place where I felt completely safe, surrounded by the rustling trees and open sky. But that day, a strange man appeared. He was naked, disoriented, and older than anyone I'd expect to see in my secret world. I should have screamed or run, but there was something about him that made me stop. Maybe it was the way he looked at me. Not with the surprise of a stranger, but with the familiarity of someone who already knew me. That man was Henry. He told me something unbelievable. He was a time traveler. He came from a future where I was a part of his life. He was calm but cautious, careful not to tell me too much, but he left me with just enough mystery to keep me waiting. Over the years, he kept returning. At first, his visits were sporadic and fleeting. Then they became a regular part of my childhood. He would show up, older each time, and talk to me as though I were someone important, someone he trusted, maybe even loved. By the time I turned 18, I realized I had fallen in love with Henry, even though the man I knew was from some distant version of the future. And then, when I was 20, I met him again. But this time, he was younger than the man I'd always known, and he didn't recognize me at all. I had to start over with him, to introduce myself, to convince him of who I was and what we meant to each other in a timeline he hadn't yet lived. Loving Henry is both exhilarating and devastating. His time traveling isn't something he controls. It's a genetic disorder that pulls him out of the present and tosses him into the past or the future without warning. Sometimes he's gone for just a few hours, but other times it's weeks or months. I never know when he'll disappear or where he'll end up. Will he come back hurt, or younger, or older, with more stories I haven't lived through yet? Our wedding day was unforgettable, not just because of the vows we exchanged, but because two versions of Henry were there. The one I married was young, but the older Henry, the one I'd grown up knowing, stood at the back, watching with tears in his eyes. I remember wondering if he was there because he knew something I didn't. There are moments when I feel like I'm not enough, when the weight of his absences crushes me. I'm left behind in the now, waiting, worrying, living half a life while he's swept away to another time. I don't know if he's safe or if he's experiencing something I'll never understand. There's also the fear that he'll meet someone else, someone in another time who captivates him as much as I do. But then, there are moments that make everything worth it. When he returns and wraps me in his arms as though he's been missing me for centuries. When he tells me about the future and the life we will share. When I see the tenderness in his eyes and realize that no matter where or when he goes, I am his anchor. I know how our story ends, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but I will tell you this. Time is both cruel and kind. It's cruel because it takes him away from me when I need him most. It's kind because it gives me the gift of loving him in a way most people never experience. I've met Henry at so many different ages, when he was a boy who didn't yet know me, when he was a man who had loved me for years, and even when he was older and frilier, still holding on to that same love. Loving Henry means loving him in every time, every version of himself, every wrinkle, every scar. It's a love that is eternal, even when he's not physically here. I know someday he'll leave me for the last time, and I'll be left in the present, carrying our memories. But until then, I'll hold on to him as tightly as I can, for as long as time allows. This is our story. Imperfect, chaotic, and extraordinary. It's a story about how love transcends time, how it persists even when the world tries to tear it apart.